Okay, Siksika, we want to welcome you to the inaugural Siksika Nation Chief and Council live stream, community update. This is our first stream, so had a little bit of technical difficulties as we're getting it online. So thank you for bearing with us. Just the introduction of a little bit of how this is going to work. My counselor to my left, Counselor Soloway, he will be the moderator. Today, it's not an open band meeting. It's an update of our task force, and we will be doing more updates on the other areas such as Old Sun, Family Services, Health, Blackfoot Crossing, and those areas. Today, we're going to be focusing on our community relations team, our agreements team, our culture and language team, our public safety, our funding, our land use plan, and 1910, as well as SRDL. So if you have any questions during this time, you can email them to sncc@siksikanation.com, and we'll try to address your questions during our update. This will be a virtual event. It's going to be recorded and shared on our siksikanation.com website and our other social media platforms. For those who cannot attend the live update, it will be available on those platforms after. So at this time, I'll turn it over to the moderator, and he'll facilitate from here.
Thank you, Chief Ulrich Crowfoot. At this time, I'm going to call for council to rise, and our visitors, the RCMP and Dean from SRDL, to rise in solidarity with nations, communities throughout Canada, and the 215 children that were found as we stand as Siksika Nation in solidarity. I'm going to ask for a moment of silence of 30 seconds. Thank you, Council. At this time, I'm going to look to my fellow colleagues, Kent Ayanman, Armin Duckcheap, and Leon Cranebear, for the honor song that is sung by our Blackfoot people.
Sit down. Go big. Opening so go. Gonna some go kakin ka kiskunal. Ne stonna go kai chipamir kitopi. Okay. Suka pio ka kikito to so noch ka ksikoi. Oken iksikei sitapinta piku tutoma pi in sis is kochik. Ota pi some municipality pio sine in sin. As Blackfoot people, our songs are important to us. It connects us to this place. There's songs for everything that provides our people with life and survival. We always in our prayers hear our people pray. We acknowledge na dosi, kokomikis, koko six, kakato six, epistor, spartipis, kokimians, kakato six, kokoyoxako, mochpokoix, ikichikam. Oken kaapomachkeks, suipiks, xaiputeks. Iskochik, alchkotsix. They sang songs for our people that protected our one another and protected kitars and no. Today we live in a modern time, and we continue to carry on our songs from our ancestors. And these songs that I learned, it's encouraged me to continue to sing these songs. And these songs were sung long before white people set foot into Gitaos and Siksika. That's what connects our people to this area, to this land, to this environment. I went down south and I went to visit Stoisapu, Skapi Pikaniko. His white name is Earl O. Person. I went to go visit him about songs. And the songs that he shared with me while I was there, I'm going to share 2 songs. The first song I'm going to share, it's about when our warriors come home. And there's words in these songs. It talks about our people coming home. Don't worry, we'll be coming home eating berries. In the old days, when the warriors go out and they come home, they all come home victorious. That's a sign of victory. The time of honoring the people, it's in essence where we're calling these children home, that they're going to be able to eat berries with their people. The second song I'm going to sing, our old people sang as the Blackfoot tribal song. So I'm going to share these 2 songs.
At this time, I'd like to thank Kent and Leon and Armandukji for the song, honor song today. I'm going to look to the agenda today, Council. This agenda, I first off want to have the opportunity to really look at the agenda. As the Chief reiterated, the task forces will be presenting their updates with respect to our strategic plan and chief and councils moving forward. I welcome the invitees, the RCMP to my left, Cassandra Webster, to my right, Dean, who is the CEO for SRDL. With that being said, I'm going to go to the first task force at hand. I'm going to go to the public safety, and the chairman of that public safety is Carlin Blackrabbit. Carlin, you have the floor at this time.
Thank you, Councilor. Ken, thank you for the song. Armin. So at this time, I would just like to introduce myself, Councilor Carlin Blackrabbit. I am currently the task force chair for public safety. Now, before I begin the presentation, I'd like to introduce the task force. We have Susan Solway, Ruben Breaker. Ruben is also our RCMP liaison. We have Samuel Crowfoot, Kendall Pantalone, Armin Duckchief, and Ken Leoman. So, as you're aware, the chief had assigned us to task forces at the beginning of the term, and we've been fairly busy with our duties. And I'd like to just start by making an announcement to the nation. I'll read the press release right now. It's the Peace Officer Authorization. Siksika Nation is pleased and excited to announce that the Solicitor General Peace Officer Program of Alberta has been provided our nation authorization for peace officers. We have 3 trained peace officers from our community ready to serve and provide a community focus. We would like to acknowledge all the hard work that has been put into this application since December 2020 by the Public Safety Task Force, Chief and Council, and under the guidance of Tribal Manager Richard Sparvier and Justice Manager Diane Brick from our administrative team. The vision and heavy schedule to achieve this was a great effort by our teams. So just want to start by making that announcement. Further along the line to the Peace Officer Program, I'd just like to allow my colleague Ruben just to give a little bit more detail on the Peace Officer Program when this presentation is over. But I'll just speak point to point on what we're doing as a task force. So the announcement has been made. We have an authorization for peace officers to be on our nation. So we will have an event planned for that going forward, and we will have some public notice out. The task force has been working closely with the Alberta Minister of Transportation Office to identify safe turnoffs off the 901 highway and other highways on the nation. We've identified up to about 7 busy turnoffs on the 901 highway, and we're working with the department's engineer to assess the highway, but also make sure that there's a proper merging into the community. So some of the areas are highly populated service roads, and our goal is to ensure that our nation members can safely turn off into these communities without having to worry about vehicles that are driving behind them. And further to that, as you're all aware, as of this past March, April, we've had the 901 highway speed lowered from 100 kilometers to 80 kilometers. And that was lobbying from Chief and Council and Chief with the province. So, we want to ensure that there's safety on our highway and maintaining the speed of 80 kilometers. The task force is working with 2 newly appointed law firms to review all our bylaws. We're taking a look at the livestock bylaw, the trespass bylaw, and other bylaws. I'll allow my colleague Sam to speak more on that. He speaks. The task force is also working towards a satellite office on the east end of the nation in the Clooney area. The chair, myself, has assigned Councillors Ruben, Susan, and Armin to work on the development of the satellite office. Now, we're still in early conversations and discussion with how this is going to look. We're working with the RCMP division, Southern Alberta division, and we hope to have some forthcoming announcements on this new office that will be on the east side of the nation. Finally, our policing application. I've assigned Samuel Crowfoot, Kendall Panthenor, and Kent Aman to working on submitting our policing application to the province and the federal government. The team will begin the application process on the reestablishment of the tribal policing on the nation. We have set a deadline to have our application in early 22, and we're working with the federal and the provincial government justice departments. So I've split each task forces into these two groups, and those are our goals. At this time, I'll allow my colleagues from the task force to make some additional comments to further talk about these initiatives we're working on as a task force. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlin, for that. Recently, as we heard Mr. Black Rabbit speak just now, the chief and council hired 2 law firms to handle the legal needs of the administration and chief and council. Some of the very first projects of our law firms were assigned to are finalizing our bylaws and getting them ready to post. The first 3 bylaws which chief and council has identified as most pressing are our trespass bylaw, our banishment bylaw, and our livestock bylaw. These are the first to be passed and be put into effect. Other bylaws will be forthcoming in the very near future. The trespass bylaw is the first of our bylaws that will go out to the public for review. The trespass bylaw to date has already had the required 3 readings, but final comments and final edits are still being finalized, and we will have those completed by the week of June 21st. Please watch our social media outlets and webpage for developments. It is our goal that our trespass bylaw will be in full force and effect by August, ready for enforcement by our peace officers and local RCMP. In addition to instituting new bylaws and peace officers, the Public Safety Task Force has created a job description for a nation prosecutor, which is a lawyer to represent Siksika Nation and to prosecute our bylaws in court. This prosecutor will litigate bylaws and, where appropriate, seek to implement restorative justice practices, utilizing cultural teachings and working with alternative dispute resolution groups such as Eskapimagix. The job description for the prosecutor has not yet been posted, but will be up on our social media outlets in the very near future. Please watch these outlets for developments. Thank you.
I am Councillor Ruben Breaker, and it's an honor to be in front of you today, giving you these updates. Given public safety is a huge area and a huge responsibility, the team, we have worked hard to get where we are today, but also want to acknowledge all the work that's been done prior to this term. And so we've come a long way. And with the latest announcement of the peace officer approval, this is big news for Siksika. It's been in the talks for about 2 years now, and negotiating with the provincial government, the Lethbridge Police Service, who provided the training of our peace officers. There was 3 that completed the training, and all the, the preliminaries, such as the vehicles and everything else, the tribal manager has took it upon himself to complete all that process. Also with our court process. So this is big news for Siksika. It's been a long, hard negotiations with the governments. So now what this means now is, as the chair mentioned, we lobbied hard to get the speed limit on Highway 901 reduced to 80 kilometers in the high traffic areas. Unfortunately, it took some lives of our people. So that's a huge accomplishment. So with the RCMP, we have a CTA agreement, and they have increased patrolling on the Highway 901. But what this also means is our peace officers have the ability to monitor that highway as well. So they'll be double monitored by the RCMP and our peace officers. So this is big for Siksika. So yeah, that's one thing. And also with that announcement of the speed limit drop reduced to 80 kilometers, the CTA agreement with the RCMP, that's a community tripart agreement with Siksika Nation, Alberta government, and the federal government. So we have 4 RCMP members assigned to Siksika from the Gleason detachment. And we have one of our members here with us, Constable Webster. And every year we have priorities that we sit down with the RCMP, and one of them that's so new is with this reduction of the speed limit is to monitor that highway. So we've had some stats that Constable Webster is going to relay to the people on how that has impacted that highway. So at this time, I'd like to give it to Constable Webster to provide some stats on Highway 901 as per their speed limit reduction.
Thank you, Councillor Brinkler. As Councillor Brinkler mentioned, my name is Constable Cassandra Webster, and I am one of the CTA members and also the primary community liaison to Siksika from RCMP Gleason. I want to thank everyone for allowing me the opportunity to meet them today, and I'd love to go over some of the statistics that we've pulled from this last quarter. So as had been mentioned, April, March, we saw the speed change on the 901 go from 100 to 80. And I congratulate Chief and Council on making that happen. I imagine that was no small challenge. Since then, we've seen enforcement on this area increase by 31%. This amounts to 162 traffic stops in Siksika Nation, all of which, or the majority of which, put a focus on speeding offenses on the 901. In addition to RCMP's Gleason's own patrols, we've also brought in the RCMP provincial traffic units to assist on those patrols, and they dedicated a significant amount of their time. Sure, you may have seen at times there was 3 to 4 RCMP vehicles on the 901. In the past couple of months, they issued 150 tickets, which equaled roughly $17,000 in fines, all focused on speeding. We have seen a decrease in calls for service regarding speeding and traffic issues on the 901. And in our personal experience as officers, we've seen a high level of compliance among Nation members. And we're starting to see non-Nation members traveling through the 901 understand that the speed has been changed. So overall, I think it's been somewhat successful. With that said, though, as summer approaches and we expect the 901 to be busier with people traveling through the area, the patrols will continue. And we ask Nation members who live in the area to respect the speed change. And of course, we will continue to educate those who are entering the Nation on the new speed limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Constable Webster. So with the peace officers, what the advantage we have now at Siksika is we could develop our own bylaws, traffic bylaws, say, for example, speed limits in our communities. There's a history of wild car chases, vehicles going through the community at high speeds. Now we have the ability to make a bylaw of posted speed limits in those communities, and our peace officers can monitor those areas. So that's a big bonus for having these peace officers that we just recently got approved. I think that's it.
Thank you to my colleagues and thank you to our guest. So I forgot to add in my opening comments, I'd like to acknowledge the work done by Donna Tana with the Works Incorporated. She was a big part in helping us with our application process with the Peace Officer Program. And also I'd like to acknowledge our community members who successfully completed the Peace Officer Program back in fall of 2020. Melanie Black, Chance Caffro, and Dustin Melvin. So they were a part of that program back in the fall, and they successfully completed the 12-week program. And right now they're working with the Justice Department to get all the training, become familiar with their laws, and a lot of elder guidance in their training as well. And finally, for any if you have any grievances that need to be addressed with the police, please get a hold of the RCMP 734-3056, or you can call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. If there's any suspicious vehicles or any suspected houses that have any unusual activity, please call enforcement. Please document everything, and stay safe. Continue to protect our elders and children, and keeping our community safe. I believe I can strongly and confidently say this task force is working towards a safer community. We want to have the best quality of life for our people, and I don't think anyone should have to worry about any illegal activities happening in our community. So we're on the right track, and with our developments, we hope to see a lot of improvements in our community, and we need our community alongside with us to help make these changes happen. So with that, Chair Ike, Chief, that's the Public Safety Task Force. And we will be having some community engagement sessions as restrictions ease. So keep an eye out for that. We do want a community input, community consultation. We want to make sure everyone's involved. Thank you.
Just real quick, a lot of work's been done on this task force. We got a CTA agreement, just to reiterate what Council Breaker said, but our goal is to have our own police force. Our goal is to have our own police force back. Had it once before, it's off now. But we went from not having security to now we have security. In the next couple of months, you're gonna start seeing Siksika Nation peace officer vehicles monitoring our own peace officers. As you heard the announcement, the program has been approved. We're working on, as we speak, a satellite RCMP office out in the east, as well as getting our application for our own police force being stated back in by early next year. So again, hats off to the task force team. A lot of great work. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Carla, and thank you, Chief, for those words of encouragement. At this time, I'd like to welcome those that are joining the live stream of the Chief and Council. I encourage you all to have the opportunity to send in your Q&As as the email reiterates, sncc@siksikanation.com. At this time, I'm going to move to the SRDL group number 2, and I'm going to look to the chair, Tracy McHugh, and her colleague, Dean. Tracy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Siksika. Welcome to the chambers. First, I'd like to thank Chief and Council for allowing SRDL the audience today. I know it was a bit of outside of our task forces, so I do appreciate you allowing me the time. I'd like to take a quick minute to introduce our board. So first, I'm Tracy McHugh. I serve as the chair of SRDL. Wade Healy serves as our vice chair. Ori Crowfoot, Sam Crowfoot, Armin Duckschief. That's it. I'll serve as members at large. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce Dean Janvier. I've asked him to come into chambers today to sit with me while we do our presentation. Dean was hired in September. Yes, September, as the CEO of SRDL. He hails from the Cold Lake First Nation, and we are just here to present a lot of the goings on. So here we go. I'd like to thank the previous term, Chief and Council term, for initiating the review of SRDL. It was no easy task, and I know it caused a lot of concern, and for that, I thank them for heading up that review. Upon review completion, a lot of the findings let us know that change was not only inevitable, it was necessary. So we've taken that review, and I'd just like to let the community know that that review was not done in vain. took all of those findings and we've moved it along into 2021 into this chief and council term. Based on the review, we challenged everything into 3 different phases. So the first phase was the change out of the board of SRDL. So what we did was we excused the board and we took chief and council board members until we could repost, whether it's community members, members who have expertise in the areas of the pillars that SRDL stands on. That was our first phase. Our second phase was our management improvements. A lot of the management has been excused, and now we are looking to that revamp of how SRDL works as an organization. A review of all companies that sit under the SRDL umbrella, the group of companies, was reviewed. And upon those reviews, many dissolutions of companies had to happen. So there were a lot of non-performing companies that were costing the nation a lot of money, and we weren't bringing anything in. So those dissolutions have happened. And along with that, we went into governance and legal restructuring. So SRDL with a new rebranding. For now, we're calling it the Siksika group of companies, but we must let it be known that SRDL will no longer be the name of our business arm. So the nation's business arm will be changing to, it's looking like Siksika group of companies, but it hasn't been solidified as of yet. But with that new name comes a new legal and governance organizational structure, a new operations structure, and a huge reduction in the expenditures dealing with the dependency on consultants and legal. So we are bringing all of that in-house now. We're making all of those costs necessary to rejuvenate and re-energize the nation's business arm. With that, though, I'm going to give the floor to our CEO of SRDL. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. And I'd like to start off by acknowledging Siksika Nation and Siksika people. Thank you for allowing me to be on your land and in your community. And it's an honor to serve. It's an honor to serve you all. I'm really thankful to be here. I'd like to also acknowledge our chairman, Councillor Soller. Thank you. And thank you very much for the songs, Councillors Youngman, Duck Chief, and Green Bear. And I too wanted to start off by making an acknowledgement for the people of Kamloops who are grieving the confirmation that they had loved ones buried near that school who weren't properly taken care of. And, you know, I think all of us who have relatives who were forced to attend those institutions, we know there are other stories, and that we're on a path of healing. Our people are, by working together and by sharing our strengths, and also at times like this, by sharing our pain and helping each other. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and to a special acknowledgement of the elders here and those who also had to attend Indian residential schools. You know, I have deep respect for you and your families, and I urge you to continue on your healing path. And most of all, to bring our children home, wherever they are. You know, be able to bring them home and find out which families they're from, and be able to take care of those children. And that's my hope for the future. It's part of the healing. So I just want to acknowledge that. It's very important to me. As Tracy had mentioned, I'm originally from Cold Lake First Nations, which is northeastern Alberta, Treaty 6 territory. And I'm a Dene Sultana person, Fluid Chuktuwe, and Dene Nene, which is my part of the world, Cold Lake First Nation. And I've had a number of years of experience prior to coming here, and quite a bit of it is in business, but also I have quite a bit of experience in politics as well. And what's that allowed me to do is to understand what it's like to to be having to serve the community, and to be responsible to implement good changes. It's not easy. Also, to understand and care for the community members, some of whom struggle, others have different kinds of needs, and it's diverse. You have to take a lot of different points into consideration. And as I mentioned before, the reason I left politics and started more to go into business is because I believe our ultimate goal is to rebuild our nations, to reconstitute our peoples, and to reassert ourselves as the true owners of the land, the true protectors and guardians of our territories and our people and our ways, to bring those back and raise our children right. But to do that, we're not going to be able to rely on the government. That's for sure, right? We'll have to do it ourselves. And to do that, as before the white people came to these lands, we have to earn a livelihood from it. And we have to respect it. And that doesn't mean we have to stay at home and be poor. There should be opportunities, right? Should be opportunities to learn, opportunities to invest, opportunities to save, opportunities to start a business, opportunities to work, to earn a good living. And that's why I chose to go more on the economic side, because it's not enough to do a little bit of healing and turn your life around a little bit. That's not enough. You have to have some way of making a living to put a roof over your head, put food on your table, and provide, medicine and clothing, the things your family needs every day. And so that's the philosophy that I come to the table with. And I recognize that I'm a guest here, and that I have a job to do. And to that end, the job I do for you is the job that I hoped someone would do for my nation when I was there. I give it my all. I'm honest. I don't play favorites. I tell the truth, and I try to do what's right. And no one's perfect. So, I'm always open to people to come and meet with me and ask questions and give me feedback, give me advice. That can only make us better as we go forward. So on to, I'd like to thank my board of directors and the shareholders and the community for giving me this opportunity. And I'm really glad to be here. I've been here a few months now, and I guess it's the worst of times and it's the best of times, right? If I could put it in those words, it's a very challenging business environment that we're in, and it's affecting everyone. So we have a couple of big problems in the economy right now. One is the effects of COVID-19, which is a global pandemic, which is affecting the whole world. And then we also have at the same time a real downturn in the oil and gas economy, which affects us in kind of a negative way. But on the other hand, where one door closes, another door always opens, and now we have many opportunities coming to us in the form of renewable energy, in the form of carbon capture and storage, in the form of agriculture, in the form of hydrogen development. So there's different things that are coming our way. So the best we can do is, if the buffalo aren't over here, then we should probably go look over there, and follow the herd the right way, and to have respect for the land. And if we follow those principles, I'm sure we'll be able to be making good decisions as we move forward. So before we get into that, coming into a group of companies that, to be honest, hadn't made money for quite some time and had some challenges. The first job that I had to do was to address the problems, right? Implement corrections, do some restructuring. That gives us a chance to succeed. And so we had a report provided to us, done by the shareholders, and so we took those challenges on and we implemented them. And so that's the first thing. And so as a result of that, we've created a new group of companies operating under a proper legal structure. And the divisions are construction, which includes aggregates and environmental services, and that can grow. We also have our retail businesses, which is the plaza, the gas station, the subway, and the Siksika Trail Market. And we also have agriculture, which would be Siksika Farms and Silk, or the irrigation division. And then we have another division called hospitality and investments. So those are your four main divisions, and coincidentally, it's four. We didn't set out to do it just to make it four, but that's the way it worked out. So hopefully that brings us, in line with a good number. And so the second step of moving forward is to make good investments in our current operations and to improve our operations. So in those areas, we've made a concerted effort to improve our customer service. And we've had a couple of complaints come across my desk since I started. I'm pleased to report that they were both resolved very positively. And I'm really happy that that not too many come across my desk, because we've been training our managers to make sure that the complaints or issues can be resolved right away. They don't need to drag on, right? So if any of you are experiencing some problems in any of our businesses, please ask to speak to the manager and let them know what's going on, and they can help you right there. So that's one important thing. Another thing is we have been working hard during COVID and even before that, but especially during COVID and going forward, to always ensure that we're keeping our costs to a minimum. That's number one. And secondly, to keep our prices as low as possible for community members, especially with respect to their groceries. So we aim to do better there, but we're going to be entering into a contract with a new grocery supplier in the near future, and hopefully that will result in greater savings for the people. The next step is to build your business and increase revenues. So now that we've kind of, made some of those, cleaning up your own backyard type of improvements, if I'll call it that, we're now looking to the future and how to grow. And so that involves at this time trying to increase revenues and growing the business by making strategic investments. So we're looking to improve efficiency and increase profits. For example, in the group of companies under construction, we've secured $11.6 million worth of bridge construction for the Springbank Reservoir project through Mississippi Graham. And that will mean jobs for community members. And that work is expected to start later this year. It could be delayed due to permitting, but hopefully it'll be happening soon. Another one is we've secured and been managing over $8 million worth of funding available through the site rehabilitation program to clean up the oil wells on Siksika through our new joint venture called Siksika Vertex. And that's important because normally what would happen if we hadn't developed a joint venture is it will go to some other company, and that company would manage it. You may or may not get work out of that. You may or may not employ people if it was that way. But because Siksika Vertex is the manager doing the applications and making sure the work is done correctly, it also provides the maximum amount of contracts and jobs available to band members as this work is completed. But the best part is, I guess, is to see those old well sites cleaned up. So that's really good. Land can be returned to a purpose that'll benefit the whole community.
Chair. Dean, do you have a number on about approximately how many well sites will be cleaned up at Siksika?
Yes, I think we're looking at approximately 120 out of the 150 that we're looking to clean up right away within the next 2 years. So, but work has started already, and you'll see machines and equipment moving the dirt and cleaning up sites and taking away old equipment starting this summer. So it'll be ongoing. And also we have in agriculture, I'm really happy to see how well Siksika has done in agriculture. You have a very strong base to work from. Very good investments were made in the past. So you have a really good place to work from there. So our plan is we've done a review of the business plan, and that'll be shared in the very near future. We're just finalizing it right now. We've collected historic arrears. There was large amounts of money going back years that hadn't been paid to your nation from Renton, which we collected. So that's all up to date. The head lease had been not renewed for several years, and that will be done shortly. We're just in the final steps of that, which will mean higher rates for your land that you're leasing out, which will mean more return back to you, to the people. And another one is on pivots. We would like to add more irrigated acres as was originally intended. So with the new business plan and the lands that are identified, we will be able to access funding probably through the FCC in order to add a lot more acres under irrigation. So that should benefit everyone. The last part of that strategy for farms is looking at new niche crops. And your nation had invested quite a large amount of money into cannabis. And yet, when I started, there was no license. After all those years of operation, your nation still did not own a license to produce anything. That really concerned me. So we got a third-party review of the business plan. And then we found out that we didn't need a joint venture partner. All we really needed to do was make an application. So we did. We made an application, cost around $6,000. And now Siksika Nation holds a license to produce industrial hemp issued by Health Canada. And with that license, we were able to enter into a sales agreement with Manitoba Harvest, which is the largest buyer of hemp seeds in the country. And we planted a quarter section this year, about 160 acres of hemp. So the profit margin on that product will probably be very high. I can't give you an exact number at this time, but it'll be over 50% of a return. And that's, as you guys know from farming, that's pretty good if you can get 50%. So, but that's not the answer, is what I'm saying. You know, we're not going to just produce hemp, right? Food security is paramount. You know, we need to ensure that the nation can always feed itself. We need to have sustainable farming practices so that, you know, 7 generations from now, the land is as good as it is today or better, you know, and things like that, right? So we want to address all of those things, and we feel that investments in agriculture are the way to go. The pandemic illustrated for everyone how very important it is to have access to your own food supplies, that you know what you're eating, you know how it was produced, and you know, our Creator blessed the Siksika Nation with an abundance of arable land and access to water and the ability to produce food. So, you know, the future is bright in that regard. So the last thing, sorry about that. I missed on the other side of hemp, they take the seed and they make food products out of it. But the stalk and the fiber that's produced is also valuable. We had an inquiry from a company in Quebec that makes uniforms, and they have a contract to produce uniforms for the military, Canadian military and other, probably US and others in Europe. And the best fiber that you can produce fabric with for military uniforms is hemp. So they're looking to invest money in this part of the country to secure an annual supply of hemp fiber that's collected, dried, baled, and then sent back on a train. So they produce clothing out of it. So hemp is just an example of a niche product. There will be others as we go. We'll keep looking. But as you diversify what you're producing, and you look at horticulture, you look at greenhouses, you look at different ways of producing food all year round here, I think producing food and then turning those food products into marketable products is one way that you can really secure a strong and healthy future here that's not reliant on energy, right, in any way. So another area that we've put in some effort is in the retail area. So you may have noticed that we've leased 2 bays out of the 5 that's over at the plaza. One is for Sam's Peace, and the other one is to Siksika Health. They're opening up a workout facility there. So I think that's great to drive business there. We're hoping to relocate the post office from this building here over to that area. It'll be a modern facility. You'll be able to get packages delivered there, and there'll be increased the number of post office boxes available. So that'll be a positive. We have a couple of other ideas for the other 2 bays, but we don't want to let all the ideas out of the bag right now. But we're working on those, and as we get approvals to proceed, we'll be opening up other businesses there, or leasing them out to other customers. And then on your hospitality, I wanted to speak a little bit about the hospitality investments. It's important to know that when you invest large amounts of your capital in these properties, and especially when they're new, they shouldn't be looked at as 1 year or 2 year or 3 year investments. They should be looked at as 10-year, 20-year, 30-year investments. They take a long time to really mature, meaning 5 years or more. And then once it hits that point, you're starting to earn solid returns, right? As long as they are built in the right place and they have the right kind of market. And I'm really happy to report that you have a number of hotels invested with the Pomeroy Group. And those hotels, including Kananaskis, those hotels during COVID outperformed. They actually exceeded expectations. And I would like to tell you and all the community members that has a lot to do with your partner there, Pomeroy Group. They are ethical, they're talented, and they know the hotel business. So I strongly encourage you to continue with that relationship and see how that goes. But I'm very confident those properties are in good hands, and they'll bounce back quickly, and they'll continue to do well. I'll have more information on that at another time, but today I just want to let you know that. We have 3 other hotels. 2 are in the west end of Edmonton with a different partner called PAL.
Can you give more of an overview? Like just a quick one? Yeah, we got
We're short for time. Right?
we got 10 more sections to do, an hour to do it.
Well, I'm wrapping up. This is actually my last point. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. Sorry, just used up my 30 seconds. Thank you very much. So the ones at Edmonton are doing well. They're going to bounce back quickly. There's only one of concern, that's your Calgary Weston Airport. It has nothing to do with anything except the market, but when international travel returns and group business returns, there's no concerns about that hotel. So it's a matter of being patient. And finally, future growth, we're going to concentrate on bringing forward more opportunities in renewable energy, green energy, hydrogen, carbon capture, carbon credits, those kinds of things. So that's the overview I wanted to give today. Thank you very much, and we'll be making a more full report next month's newspaper in writing, and also please come by and see us anytime. And, we'll keep you up to speed. We'll keep making reports like this on a quarterly basis, and you'll always know what's going on with your companies from now on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up to the chief.
I just want to make a quick overview comment. I don't want to cut we scheduled for 2 hours, but I'll let the people know, online as well as in chambers. We haven't done updates. We've done them through Siksika and, our communication specialist, Lynn, has been putting out updates, via our, communication, but not in this forum. So, I don't want to cut anybody short. And so, if we do go past the 2 hours, we'll allow that. So as long as we don't, pass out over here on our communication side, because there's a lot of good information. And sorry for, kind of trying to get it in there, Dean, but I just wanted to make sure that let the people know that we did have it scheduled for 2 hours, but I'm looking at it now, there's no way we're going to get all these in 2 hours. So if we need to take longer, we'll take longer. So, and again, if you have any questions at all, when you hear something from, the Agreements Task Force, SRDL, any of these other areas, email them to sncc@siksikanation.com. So I just wanted to let people in virtual world know that even though we do have it scheduled for 2 hours, we will go longer if needs be. We want to give the people the appropriate amount of, because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of, Dean could have kept going for 2 more hours. I'm really proud of, like, if you look, just drive over to the bays are filling up now. Another thing that we didn't mention is the grocery store is really, there's a lot of really positive things coming out of that area. And Dean could have went on for another two more hours, but just want to let everybody know in virtual world that if you want to stay tuned, we'll keep going as long as we go, as long as the updates are here to be updated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for those comments. I'm going to give Tracy, the chair of SRDL, some final comments before we move to the next individual.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dean. I'll give this last opportunity to any of our SRDL board members for any comments they may have.
Chair, I just want to make a comment too, that when the board originally was dissolved and council was on the board, that is not the way it's going to be. Like now there's 2 new board members. They have industry knowledge, and I want to say construction and agriculture. They're looking to bring on other industry knowledge people. So myself be dropping off, Armin will be dropping off. So we'll be dropping off, council will be dropping off as these boards feel. That was but a lot of good work that's been done over at the new board. So thank you, Dean, and your team.
Yes, we hope to have those board transitions done in probably within the next 3 months. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Dean, for joining us in this update. So I'm going to move right along. The next task force group, I'm going to call to Carlin Blackman for the community relations team. Carlin, you have the floor.
Hello again. It's been a while since I presented. Hello, I'm just gonna put my mask on for social distancing. So at this time, I'd like to introduce the task force. Again, I'm the chair for the Community Relations Task Force. I'd like to introduce my team, Susan, Ruben, Jenny, and Samuel. So just a brief overview of the task force. Our focus is building relationships with external, internal, volunteer-based organizations. We're working on the communications aspect of our office. I do want to acknowledge Lynn Caffro. She's our communications specialist, and she's been a really big help to our team. her expertise and her knowledge has been, it's been an honor to work alongside with her. And she's really helped, she helped facilitate this live stream. So acknowledgement. But yeah, just to speak further about the task force, I'll provide a quick overview on some of the projects we've been working on, some of the initiatives we've been working on. In no particular order, I'll talk about our relationship building with the town of Strathmore. So since the beginning of this term, we started meeting with local municipalities, all forms of government, and Strathmore Town Council has been one of the main priorities. You know, as you're all aware, in some way, shape, or form, we've had some bad experiences in the town of Strathmore, whether it was racism or just odd encounters. And our hope is to build that relationship. We're neighbors. You know, a lot of us live in Strathmore. We go to Strathmore for whatever our needs may be. So we've been working closely with Mayor Pat Fuel and his council. And I just want to acknowledge Councilors Breaker and Councilor Solway, who have been working on an anti-racism campaign with the Indigenous liaison in Strathmore. As you're aware, on the highway, number one, if you drive through Strathmore, you'll see Reuben and Susan on a billboard. I'll allow them to speak towards that, more towards that, when it's their time to speak. Moving forward, the task force has been working. Again, we want to make sure, you know, we have a thriving community and quality of life for our people. So one of the initiatives the task force has been working on and trying to collaborate more on is a community fridge. We've had several meetings discussing how we can make a community fridge possible. And this initiative has been led by Nation member Nevin Bearchief. And Nevin has developed and established a committee from volunteer community members who are working towards this community fridge. Now, just to give you a brief overview of the community fridge, we're taking this model from Calgary and other parts of North America. There's a bunch of community fridges popping up, and basically it's a come and go as you please. Take food, donate food. There's no real criteria. You know, we want to address food insecurity in our community. Also promote volunteerism. You know, that community building. And we have everything lined up for the fridge. There's future developments that are going to be happening fairly quick. Right now, we're trying to secure a location for the fridge. So keep a lookout for that. I believe social media and other forms of notice of the fridge will be given out in the next coming weeks here. So with COVID restrictions easing, we are working on an event on June 19th at Blackfoot Crossing. We are doing a community barbecue. Now, I will allow my colleague Susan to speak further to that when she speaks. She's done some tremendous work with the planning of this event. One of the biggest things in our strategic plan with the Chief and Council was doing community barbecues. Not just in one area of the reserve, we want to go to all communities. So keep a lookout for that. We still plan to get some more barbecues done over the summer and into the fall. One of the initiatives we worked on again in May was the community cleanup. So members of Chief and Council went to the west end of the reserve and east end of the reserve to volunteer our time, cleaning up our communities. And I do want to acknowledge every community member that participated. We ran a bit of we wanted to do something interactive, so we had a contest on social media. You cleaned up your yard or your community, take a picture and send it to us. So again, thank you to all those who participated. But it's really good to see our community being cleaned by our people. Finally, we're partnering. We want to partner with all organizations that support community. So we're dedicated to building those relationships. And within this past term, we have partnered with Toys R Us, McDonald's. We're currently working on some developments with the Calgary Zoo and, other areas like the Rotary Club. We want to work with local artists, local skateboard companies, Cousin Skateboarding. We want to help them as much as we can. So our team is always open, internal, external organizations. If you want to volunteer your time, please reach out to us. The email is sncc@siksikanation.com, or you can contact us directly. All our information is posted on the website. So if you need to get a hold of myself or any of the task force members, just reach out. We really want to encourage volunteering in our community. We feel a lot can be done. And again, we call to our community for that help. As you're aware, we're also trying to get as much communication out as the chief mentioned. We have monthly notices that go out in Siksika. We have our website, and myself and Councillor Armin Duckchief, we're working on a newsletter. So we're going to work on everything communication to our people. And I would also like to add, this is the first of many live streams to come. Now that we have the appropriate technology to accommodate this, we plan on going forward with more live streams. So people watching, there'll be more opportunities to interact. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the team, the task force, to allow them to talk further about their initiatives that they're involved in. And I'll start with Sue.
I'll go with Buck to start.
Oh, Buck? Okay. Ruben will start. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair Carla. And so with this community relations team, we've been tasked to continue the talks with Strathmore. And, I'd like to thank this chief and council for continuing that MOU with Strathmore after a horrific event. The trial is, as we speak, is happening. I want to acknowledge the family of Melody. Send blessings and prayers to them. So just some history. So after that event or that situation, horrific situation 2 years ago, we had a vigil at the town. And that's where we started the talks with Pat and Denise, and that's how this started. So we come up with, we did some planning, and we identified 7 areas that we need to target and address. Health, education, sports, human resources, housing, law enforcement. I think that's it. But so just some of the accomplishments we have done so far is we've worked closely with the overnight shelters with Strathmore. We've I think Family Services has donated a donation to their overnight shelter over the winter. And we also, council, we gave some turkeys to the community. And also in the winter months, we got the final signing of a letter of understanding with the RCMP, Town of Strathmore and Siksika. And what that document spells out is we now have transportation for any of our members who get in a situation with the RCMP and any inclement weather or even during the summer or whenever, there's no restrictions, but now we have an agreement where they'll have a ride back to Siksika. We've committed dollars to it. We've made an agreement with the taxi service. So they'll provide some transportation to Siksika. We don't want any of our members walking on the highway. 817 is very narrow. And with MMIW, we don't want to take a risk of having our members having to walk And that led to another letter of understanding with St. Strathmore and Siksika, same service, but out of the hospital. A lot of us know that our EMS provides transportation to the hospital, but aren't obligated to stay there as there may be other calls. So a lot of our nation members are left at the hospital. So we have another service there that similar to the RCP, but provide transportation back to Siksika. Also, there's been many developments with the anti-racism campaign. Myself and Councillor Solway have been a part of that with Stukumi Smith. She's been working very hard, a young, energetic, motivated nation member doing amazing work with the town. We've had several segments, Facebook Live, Coffee with the Stukumi, just having open dialogue. And this is just in last night, Strathmore Council passed a motion to direct administration to develop an amendment to the community standards bylaw and add provisions that address expected behavior of members of the public in regards to unjust and prejudice treatment the town-owned facilities, complete with suitable penalties and consequences. So that's on their table right now. And we've had talks about that, mainly in sports, education, and Sue's been at that table, and she could provide an update on that. So that it's going to be kind of a trying few months because their election is forthcoming, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop these talks. I've let them know that Siksika will be waiting for their new council to continue these talks. So that's our goal, is to make sure that our people are treated safe and fair in the town limits. So I know we're developing a reporting mechanism. So anybody that occurs some incidents, that will have a reporting mechanism that will come to us and we can address it. So that'll be forthcoming in the near future. So with that, I'll give it to Councillor Sue to report on the education sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Susan Solway. I know you can't see me. Unfortunately, it's the way the camera's set up and the way we have to social distance here, but as long as you can hear me, that's fine. I just want to first acknowledge Elder Clement Leather, who was in here this morning to give us a blessing. We talked a little bit about the way moving forward and how we can clear our mind and our space and of some of that negativity that is kind of around us and the overwhelming situations that we are sometimes in. So thank you, Clement, for that. I want to acknowledge Councillors Kent Youngman, Councillor Armin Duckchief, and Councillor Leon Cranebear for the honor song this afternoon. Thank you. And thank you for that 30 seconds of a moment of silence for the Indian Residential School. Just to speak to that a little bit, I do want to acknowledge all of our students here in Siksika that went through the IRS system. Please know that you are in all of our thoughts and prayers during this hard time. And we are working towards putting together a little bit of a community get together when the timing is right. So please look out for that. So with regards for the Strathmore subcommittee. So I sit on the education subcommittee along with some of the other council members from the town of Strathmore. We recently, so basically we're trying to look at how we can better address racism within the school system, basically in a nutshell. We met with the school trustee and the Golden Hills superintendent to talk about the policies that are currently in place and possibilities for the future. We focused on a discussion of what is working now, because the schools are doing a lot with regards to trying to showcase our Siksika culture. They have individuals, elders, advisors that they work with within the schools, and the school liaisons as well, who are doing a great job with that. So we're kind of looking at what are the policies in place, what are working, and how can we establish a more permanent template and plan going forward. So it's really looking at what that 60 to be strategy is within the schools. For example, we want to be able to, just create and involve more Siksika representation on their governing board. That's something that we hope to implement with their group. We want to be able to provide that partnership with their Board of Education, with our own Siksika Board of Education, and provide some of that cultural awareness for them, say with regards, for example, for their professional development days where they have training for their staff. I guess at the end of the day, it really is about just creating a better space and a safer space for our students, because we do hear those concerns that are out there with regards to the school systems, and we want to make sure that our students are safe and protected. We do have a good opportunity to send our students to a school like Strathmore, and I think we just need to be able to make sure everyone is safe and protected. I won't ramble on too much anymore on that one. I also sit on the Business and Economic Subcommittee with Strathmore Board as well. So we've had a couple of meetings so far with them to address what racism looks like during our shopping, our regular shopping days, whenever we're visiting the businesses around town. So the goal is to improve the experience for Indigenous people, Siksika people at the shops in Strathmore. We really want to kind of identify those stores and restaurants that many of our people visit a lot, and try to get some feedback on what works and what doesn't work, what needs improvement, all that kind of thing. So I guess our next steps is really to build a mechanism to react to situations that might arise to help improve the overall relationship within the stores and our Siksika people. We've had a lot of good response with Mayor Pat Fuel and his council members on this. We really hope to be able to bring some cultural awareness to their business owners. As you know, most of our people on reserve shop in Strathmore, so we really want to try and make that experience more pleasant than it has been in the past, because we do hear those concerns as well. Okay, I will wrap that up. That's all I have to say on those two items. Thank you. Oh yeah, I can touch on the barbecue a little bit. So you might have, those who are on social media and who has picked up the most recent copy of Siksika, you likely have seen the posting for the community barbecue. So what it is, it's a summer solstice Chief and Council community barbecue and outdoor market. Like Councillor Black Rabbit had said, it is on June 19th. It will be at the Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park parking lot location. The times will be from 10 till 3 p.m. So the barbecue component, it will be a drive-through. We're partnering with health, the recreation, and the fire and EMS crew to get that underway. But also the outdoor market part, we wanted to be able to, because we've been so, home and told we can't leave and all whatnot with COVID-19. And now that we're in the yellow, back in the yellow risk level, we're working closely with the health CDC team as well to make sure that we're following all guidelines and make sure that it's safe for everybody. So we are able to host this outdoor market. So we're opening it up for roughly 10 vendors from the community. These are arts and craft vendors. I'm not sure what else, other sales. Anybody who has anything to sell, basically. We're opening it up to you to come out and set up a table and sell your products to those who come to visit. So it will be safely done. We'll have a separate location to do that, where you are allowed out of your vehicles and to purchase if you wish. We do have to limit the number though to 10. So we'll keep it at 10. So please, if you're interested, email sncc@siksikanation.com. You can find the poster in 8 Siksika or on our Facebook page, as well as our website, siksikanation.com. We are also opening it up for Siksika administration and related bodies to set up information booths as well. Again, that will be a limited number. So please, same process, register with us by emailing. And I think it's really important to again acknowledge what Councillor Black Rabbit had mentioned, that these barbecues are something that has been planned from the get-go. As soon as we did our Chief and Council's strategic plan, we wanted to do these barbecues and to be able to engage with the public and be able to provide information on the spot. So we're hoping to get a couple surveys out from our area because we do need data collection. So just keep an eye out for that if you are attending. And just know that we would definitely like to do more of these in the future, and we really hope we can come together more.
Thank you to my colleagues. So with that, that's the community relations task force. Email us again, sncc@siksikanation.com. You know, we're open to meeting with any organization or any groups who have any sort of community involvement. You know, we'd love to collaborate and see how we can help support and just work together. So with that, Chair, Chief, thank you for giving us the time.
Thank you, Carl. I'm going to look to the chief for some comments and questions.
I also like to acknowledge that this outreach team, we have met with the town of Strathmore, as was mentioned, the town of Bazzano, Drumheller, Airdrie, the City Council of Calgary, Wheatland County Reeve and their council, Newell County and their council, Vulcan County and their council. And as a result, we're starting to see some real fruits from these relationships. Strathmore, as you guys that know Strathmore, there's a new municipal building. They have named one of the rooms in that room, the Siksika room. I think the ceremony is going to be in the coming weeks, obviously depending on COVID restrictions. Also, due to the collaboration with the Reeves of Wheatland County, Vulcan County, and our surrounding areas, we've had support from the off the reserve areas regarding in collaboration with the Minister of Transportation on our one-lane bridges. We have 2 one-lane bridges at Siksika Nation. So we've had some assistance from those teams as, you know, we made great strides with the 901. Let the minister know that was just the beginning. We also are going to address these bridges on the reserve. And as a result as well, with collaboration with health services, Siksika was one of the first, not the first vaccination clinic to have an urban vaccination clinic where we were able to not just vaccinate our nation members in Calgary, but also other members of other nations and other groups in Calgary as well. And I do think, I know it's the first in Alberta, I think it's the first in Canada, rural vaccination clinic on the reserve. So, you know, right now we have 2 vaccination clinics kind of going on. We have the Siksika clinic, so you can go, everybody right now, 12 and up. I encourage you, if you haven't been vaccinated, everybody in this room's had our 2 vaccines. But we've also opened it up for our neighbors, Vulcan County, Wheatland County, Newell County, and let them know, because again, our students, our families we shop in these areas. We go to school in these areas. We're not an island. So as we build these relationships with these surrounding areas, there's opportunities. There's opportunities from an economic standpoint, from a social standpoint, and just ways we can best benefit Siksika. So I like to thank the team for all the work they've done. The team actually did not. Those are some big items that we've been working on. So many items that they didn't even mention those items. So I just wanted to acknowledge that work that's being done as well. So Chair, just didn't want that work to go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for those comments and updates. At this time, I'm going to continue to move on. I'm going to go to the agreements team. The chairman of that is Pantherbone, and Kendall, you can introduce your team. Kendall, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for my colleagues for on this morning, and welcome everyone from Siksika Nation who linked into this live stream. My name is Councilor Kendall Pantherbone, and I'm the chairman of Agreements Task Force. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce our team. Councilor Alex Holloway, Councilor Carmen Duckcheap, Councilor Susan Holloway, Councilor Trace McHugh, and Councilor Sad. So welcome. The Agreements Task Force was created to review all agreements, including specifically the settlement agreements, and also to review, actually to negotiate any new agreements with industry and any impacts from government. So our task is to review for example, the settlement agreements. So identify any potential opportunities, pursue any opportunities that are in those agreements. Also, the impacts that may occur because of the Water Act, Parks Act, also the Historical Resources Act of Alberta. That's our task, is to review those agreements thoroughly and bring back any other reports and also the recommendations back to Chief and Council on a going forward basis. We work closely with the consultation, the Siksika Consultation Office regarding they monitor any impacts to our territory, Blackfoot territory. They meet with government, bring back those recommendations back to the team, task force. We review it, give direction. If there's any other, if there's any higher level decisions, it comes back to Chief and Council for direction or approval. Right now, the main files working on right now is the coal mines. I think everyone is aware of the coal mines occurring at the River area, Coastal Pass. And there were 7 new proposed mining applications that have gone in for review. Actually 5, but there's 7 new mines. The 2 are still in the exploratory stage right now. They're doing the drilling they're doing some core drilling out there to determine the deposits. There are 5 new applications that went in. And about a year ago, June, a year ago, the province rescinded the 1976 coal policy, which protected 14,000 square kilometers of land in the Coastal Pass and the eastern slopes. So, we've been asked them to consult with us. We've been asking Alberta Energy to consult with us. Very difficult getting them to the table. There's virtually no consultation based on their decision. So Siksika, we submitted a digital review with the courts in November to challenge their decision. Because of public outcry and the First Nations, including Siksika, they're able to reinstate the coal policy. So we went through our digital review in January. So right now, the Ministry of Environment, Sonia Savage, we're reaching out to her, and we want one-on-one meaningful consultation with Siksika Nation. Has occurred. very little response from the ministry. It's been kind of challenging and frustrating that they're not hearing First Nations, not just about First Nations. Those are the results of the coal mine. So in February, we reviewed the 7 proposed mines. And the 7 mines, the cumulative impact of 7 mines was unacceptable for Siksika. So Siksika, we submitted a BCR opposing those applications. So we are opposing those 7 new proposed mines. So the applications, along with the letters that we sent to industry, will be posted on our website, and there'll be links in there to see their applications. Also did a report in a website shortly on what's happening with each file for coal mines. So we are we're going to be hiring a consultant to help us review the cumulative impacts of all 7 mines. We're going to do a regional assessment, which will include the environment, hydrology, and even ecology. And also review the treaty and original rights impact. And so we're going to be conducting that soon. And then under consultation office, there'll be about 60 authors interviewed that'll help us go to the table, submit our objection or waivers to negotiate. So 7 mines are they're all based in the Claremont area at the BC and Alberta border. So we're going to be consulting with the mines in BC as well. So that those are our main files. And we also monitor any impacts to our traditional territory, especially when it comes to claims to our territory, disturbance or impacts to our sites, and also industry, and then also the government's policy in some cases. Does affect us directly. So these are things that we are monitoring, and we'll be coming back to council for some direction and recommendation. So we do have technicians, professionals, and legal working with us to address these concerns and to assess the impacts. There's also court cases such as the Saltel goat court case that recognizes a U.S. First Nation to harvest in Canada. It'll benefit Scotty Big Gunny. So we reached out to them to practice their rights as their Aboriginal rights in Canada. So that will help us. And so there's a lot of work we're going to be conducting in a short period of time to gather all our elders' stories and research material that's out there. We got to find those primary evidence. Those are the journals from the explorers and so on. There's a lot of work that our technicians are conducting right now, and we're quite busy with this area. There are some more items I wanted to address, but before I go there, I'll turn it over to my colleagues. If they have anything to add, I'll turn it over to Sam.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Pantherbone. You may have heard in the news recently that the government of Alberta has announced that the Kananaskis area will require a fee from those who wish to visit and travel in the park starting June 1st. It is reported that the First Nations and Indigenous people would be exempt from this fee, although the exact details on the process of exemption are still being determined. The Kananaskis Conversation Pass was publicly introduced on April 27th, 2021, yet Siksika did not receive any official communication until May. Given our relationship, Siksika must be involved in governance decisions over our sacred traditional territories and resources at the earliest possible stage. We are disappointed with Alberta's failure to consult with our nation at an earlier date. Our governments are in a nation-to-nation and treaty relationship. The honor of the crown and the principle of reconciliation dictate that Alberta should seek to consult with us prior to making decisions that may affect our government, our people, and our rights. This issue is currently being pursued by the Agreements Task Force and our legal teams. Updates in this area will be communicated via our media and social media outlets. Thank you.
Tracy?
Thank you, Chair. As a member of the Agreements Task Force, I've been tasked to take a look at the outstanding use of the 35,000 acre feet, which was allotted to Siksika in the 2010 Bazzano Dam Settlement Agreement. In reviewing that agreement, we've all come to notice that section G of the agreement, more notably 20.3, we have the right to renegotiate that water use if there is a better agreement out there between another First Nation and the province of Alberta. And we have found that there are two. So to date, that is the, I guess the avenue we're looking to go down. We have been given a time frame. It won't happen tomorrow. We do know that. It will happen. It'll take a couple of years. But what it will do is it will create stronger uses. In the old Bazzano Dam agreement, or not the old agreement, but in the agreement, states that that water use is more around project-based, and see that terms prior to ours, the nation was tasked with looking for, hydro projects and something to trigger off the use of that 35,000 acre feet allotment. And the timing is just, it's too far out to get something going in a 3-year term. And that's kind of been the hiccup that every term has faced since 2010. So what we'd like to do is we're going back now, we're reviewing, we'd like to take a look at those current water management acts or agreements, between those First Nations and Alberta, and then see what is more advantageous for Siksika. What can we use next? Because there's a time frame on this 35,000 acre feet use, and it's within the next couple of years. So we are making, I want to say, strong strides in changing some of those things out and renegotiating specifically that section. So it is public knowledge, the Bazzano Dam Settlement Agreement of 2010. If our viewers want to take a look at that, again, it's section G, 20.3 is where our focus is on that Bazzano Dam arrangement, because it's going to really, well, it's always necessary. You hear the term now, it's very common, water is gold, water is gold. While the Bazzano Dam agreement restricts us from renegotiating the actual water amount, the quantity, I do think it's worth revisiting, because a lot of those 35,000 acre feet has also been allotted to much smaller nations with much smaller populations, such as Bigani. And I think that comparison needs to be made and needs to be spoken out against. So I do think it's worth revisiting. While that restriction is in place in that Bazzano Dam agreement, you know what, if we're going to renegotiate that water use, we might as well see if we can renegotiate that water quantity. Another thing that is really important is the priority of that water license once we kick it off. We need to ensure when we start renegotiating into a new water agreement that our priority is that a priority. You don't want to be at the bottom of the list, because what happens is if you don't use it, you run the risk of losing it. And so that is something that we really have to be cognizant of. Last, there are a couple of major projects that are proposed to the west of us, making Siksika Nation downstream. And that's going to become very important. You're going to require that license and kick that 35,000 acre feet. We have to kick it off, because it's going to become very important as we are downstream to two major reservoir portions to the west of us. I think there are no questions. You can see where my this is where my drive comes from. But if there are any questions, please ask sncc@siksikanation.com. Thank you.
Tracy, anyone else on that?
We'll go to the chief for a comment.
I just want to reiterate the whole reason that we developed this agreements task force, like Kendall said. When we settled these agreements in the past, everybody knows about the dollar amount. because again, that's what a lot of the payout is, but there's also a lot of things in these agreements as well. Like you said, that the water license. There's also in Banff, with Castle Mountain, there's just some, signage and those kind of things that our team's working on as well. It's kind of that some of these task force kind of bleed lines in. We're not silos here. So our agreements team might reach out with our cultural team to make sure everything's in alignment. But that's the whole reason we developed this agreements task force, was to review those agreements. We have an attorney that specializes in water licenses and making these really work, instead of it being there on paper. How do we make this work for Siksika? And once we get this license up and running, we're talking some real dollars here. But again, those kind of things will be coming, but that's the whole reason that this agreements task force came about, as well as the impacts from our traditional territory, which are all outside of the borders of the reserve. So again, Kendall and the team has done a lot of work in this area. So I just want to thank you guys for all the work you guys have done.
I'll give Kendall final comments.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Chair. Let's close off this our presentation. Let's follow up on Tracy's report. There are 3 locations west of Calgary proposing a reservoir. And we're going to be directly affected by that, even though it's way upstream from us, but we are directly affected. Only First Nations affected by this project. So we are going to reach out to them, the proponent to start a consultation process. The other file is important for membership to know is that the Buffalo Plains wind energy by the major bill, Nelson, we opposed it. It's on private lands, and private lands are pretty difficult to address our rights. That's where that's another item that we'll be working on to see how we can get by there because of the legislations for Alberta. This freehold act, I think it is. Freehold have more rights. So these are impacts that we're reviewing. And going forward, we will provide more updates. I can't get into any more details, but I can, if I reach out to us again, questions, or we'll be at the barbecue next on the 19th. If you have any questions, just reach out to us and we can give you more updates. There are more details as to what some of the agreements are about. And one last thing. Part of our negotiations, we did receive funds from a couple companies. We're looking at building possibly 2 community centers, one down east and one up west. So they helped out there. And we're looking at COVID school to retrofit that, but so much damage has been done because of vandalism. The structure is good, but it may not be feasible to retrofit it. And probably the only option is to build a new community center. And we may or may not have to knock down the old school. So we're going to do a engineer assessment and do a feasibility study. It's worth saving. And we'll be reaching out to government, pursue some grants if we save at least the gym and the east side of the Griffith School. If we can't, then the whole school will have to come down. But we are planning to, we have met, there's a group of us have been assigned to review that. So this area, through consultation, we were able to receive some funding to go towards that. So with that, I want to thank you for linking in and have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you, Kendall. I'm going to look to Tracy for some additional comments, and then we'll close the agreements team.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-up on the Castle Mountain settlement agreement. We did identify a few outstanding clauses in there that we have kicked off. One is looking at getting proper signage in the Castle Mountain area as per our agreement. to serve as a reminder to all who visit that that is our traditional territory. And it has always and always will be. So that will be being kicked off with the help of our culture task force this summer. As well, we are revisiting, taking a look at there was a couple of economic opportunities out there that are still on the table. So we're working in conjunction with SRDL, and then we will revisit them and take a look at them. So I just wanted to let the people know that they're not forgotten. They still are an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. So at this time, I'm going to call for a 5-minute break. Siksika live stream, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I encourage you to go to the email address that has been given to you, sncc@siksikanation.com for your questions and answers, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, Siksika. Welcome back to the live stream of Chief and Council. We're going to move right along with the agenda. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to take the break. And we're going to move to the next task force team. This time I'm going to look to my colleague, Kent, a young man for the Culture Task Force and Language. Kent, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, moderator, chair. I'm the chair for the Culture Task Force, and my team consists of Akast, Koya, Tusi, Awat, Sikistakiaki, Kanaiki, Tu, Kaichipundista. That's my team here. So the work that we've been doing it falls in line with our Chief and Council strategic plan, and more so for goal 4. It's all based to enhance language acquisition and to start putting thoughts into language immersion and other initiatives. We investigate on making Blackfoot. We have been investigating on making Blackfoot as the official language, and later on in this presentation, in this portion, I'll get the chief to provide input or to provide update on that portion. And there are studies that have been done here on Siksika. We're at the point where we know where the state of our language is, and we're in a very pitiful situation where we are when it comes to our fluent speakers, all getting up there in age. So throughout the years, there have been studies done going back to Dr. Vivian A. Young Man, and in 2010, there was a study done by Sherry Spotted Eagle. So we recovered these documents and using them. The work has been done, and we're just building off what work that we have compiled within this time as we got appointed to this task force. At our not this last, but the previous task force meeting that we had, we tasked Councillor Duck Chief to complete the work plan and present to the Culture Task Force and to finalize so we can execute a thorough study on where we are in the state when it comes to Jepo. And this will be presented to council eventually in short order here, and so we could get things rolling on that front. The Culture Task Force main objective is to improve fluency. Our language is very. So some of the tasks or some of the activities that we want to do. So it's been very challenging due to COVID, and earlier on, the uncertainty of bringing our people together, we were encouraged not to bring people together. And the most vulnerable people are our older people, as our health experts have been stressing to our people to protect them from this virus. So I think we're at a point where more of our older people are getting more technologically inclined, and a lot of people are adapting to Zoom and other formats when it comes to meeting virtually. So we've been looking into that method, but we're on a good road to having our people vaccinated. So we look forward to be with our people more so than what we have been during this challenging time. When we got into council, we had all these exciting plans that we wanted to do, be with our people, to be with our community, but then health officials saying, stay home. So it's very challenging to continue with this work in regards to working on our language. So some of the ideas that we're working towards is holding gatherings with HC weeks. So at our May 7th Culture Task Force meeting, we distinguished a language acquisition group, which consists of myself, Makoya Doshi, Councillor Cranebear and Councillor Gooden, myself. So we started working and working on groundwork to get a plan together on how we're going to strategize to enhancing our language. The most effective way to really bring our language to a strong state would be immersion, being immersed in our language. So these are some of the things that we've been taking into consideration in our discussions. On our discussions on May 20th, items that we've discussed is establishing an inventory of fluent speakers, engaging fluent speakers, having fluent speakers in the daycares, involving parents, having camps kind of geared towards immersion, capturing old stories, and the language acquisition group are putting all this together, and we continue to present this to task force. Back in March, I requested all the chairs of the entities to reach out to the CEOs and to the general managers, to the big bosses of the entities, to provide a synopsis on what they're doing when it comes in regards to our language and our Blackfoot way of life. And at this time, I'd like to acknowledge the chairs for getting that information from all the head of the entities here on Siksika. They're very cooperative, and we took that information just to see where we talk about a lot of overlap and activities that other areas are doing. So we don't want to recreate anything. Work has been done, so we're just going to build off that. So thank you for that. And we took that information, we analyzed it, and we see, we're looking at it to see which works best. Well, we got a dance. Jokes. On May 18th, the Culture Task Force received an inventory of road signs here on Siksika. And the team will be working on translating the signs that do have writing in English on them and putting them into Siksika. So just at this point in time, we're just awaiting more information from the tribal manager to forward any more information in regards to signs. We do have a thorough inventory from Public Works, and we appreciate that very much, so we could work towards having our language more shown. But I think the ultimate goal is to hearing it more. We need to hear our language in order to save our language. Let's see, the LAG, I kind of have it in acronym, the Language Acquisition Group will continue to work towards gathering HC and to gather and provide names to communities. A few members of the Culture Task Force sat in a meeting along with them and some of the work that they're doing, along with Old Sun Community College, with the language speakers that they're utilizing and providing communities, roads. So that's another task that we're working on. And this is where we talk about wanting to go out to the communities and talk with our people, the people of the area, to help us to provide these names to theirs, right from the east side and right up to the west side of the reserve. And then, of course, along the south and north boundaries here on this sliver of land that we got left with. And as the chair of the Culture Task Force, I continue to invite my members of the task force, along with council, to our ceremonies, our beaver bundle ceremonies that we have, our seasonal ceremonies that we have. And at this time too, I'd like to thank you for the ones who have attended. On June 19th, at the community barbecue that's going to take place, we are working on some questionnaires we want people's input who will be going through the event that Sunday on June 19th, for input and feedback from community members. I'm gonna speak back to April. When consultation was under the Culture Task Force, as my colleague Kendall Panzerbone talked about some of the relationships or the agreements that pertaining to the area in southern Alberta there. We all have our territory as Indian people. And Siksika, it's well known that our territory goes right down to the Yellowstone River, up along to the Rocky Mountains. I've heard some old people say right to the Columbia River, all the ways up to the North Saskatchewan River, where it comes out of the Rocky Mountain House today, along through Edmonton, all the ways east to the confluence of the North and South Saskatchewan rivers, right down to a little place where there was a fort named Fort Union, which is along the Yellowstone River. That's our land. So we had a meeting with the Gootenagoiaks, the people that live to the west, southwest of Blackfoot country. And this meeting, it comprised of the Culture Task Force and members of their elder advisory group and some of their leadership. As the Kootenai, they're similar to the Blackfoot Confederacy, where there's multiple tribes, but they're the same people. So we met them virtually. My team, along with the chief and their team, we had a meeting to build these relationships. And at their request, they wanted to have this meeting held in a traditional manner. But again, too, due to COVID, we could not have this sit down where we wanted to sit, like the old people would sit on the ground. You know, they involve our ways of knowing and bringing these relationships together, strengthening these relationships. But we're all cool with meeting on virtually, and I found that neat. A lot of their old people were actually utilizing those virtual cameras on their devices from their kitchens and their living rooms. So that day we just shared stories, and we shared stories how we're connected to our areas. One thing I found neat was that one thing I found neat that was kind of in common with our people was they kept referring to a jump dance or a blacktail dance. We know it as the deer dance. And how it was explained to me, it was given to our people from Gootenagoiaks, from the Castle Mountain area. And I shared that story of how that dance and that ceremony was gifted to our people from the people on that side of the mountains. So I just, and that was an initial meeting, which is going to lead on to more. And then later on, I'll turn to Makoya Dosi to just elaborate a little bit more on that. So in our strategic plan, in goal 2, priority item number 1, priority line, let's see, it speaks to historical sites and finding an inventory on historical sites here on Siksika. As Siksika, our people traveled all throughout this area, and our people have left evidence of them being there in ways of ummapi, the stone features, circles, cairns, effigies, the writing on the stone, the carvings on the stone. All that is evidence of our people that are shown in symbols. And, you know, we're very fortunate as Blackfoot people to still understand the symbols that are written on the earth in those stone features and the stuff that are written on the cliff walls. It's through the revival of our sacred societies in the 90s. And today we continue to strive to strengthen our ways, our foundation as Siksika to Akukats and Natuch Kanakachiks, Homopistanis, the names Kahquinimanis, Natuas, it's all those that's the reason for why our people are here today. And having that understanding of seeing these, when we go out to these sites, here on Siksika, there are sites. And we're going to work towards working on policies and to make these sites protected. There are 2 sites that I have heard about growing up. One is Chief Yellow Horse, and the second is Old Sun. So these two sites are known where they are today, but there have been no protection on these areas. So the task force have been working on protecting these two locations, and we're going to continue to have this inventory on Siksika to try our best to protect. You know, it would be a sad thing to see these things wiped away, it's been going on for generations. As long as white people set foot into Blackfoot country, they've been erasing our existence. But as this task force will continue to try our best and to save these and protect these sites. So at these two locations, we did the Old Sun Community College had a field school last season for archaeological work, and they had fundings left over to do some GPR work, ground penetrating radar work. So I requested the college if they could do these two sites where Yellow Horse and Old Sun were laid to rest. As you look around those old death houses that the people made in those times, there's also depressions in the earth around these two sites. So the university came out with Lunit consultant, and they did GPR work and magnetometry work to find those disturbances in the ground. And they provided a report, and they provided recommendations of buffer zones of how this area, how big this area should be to preserve these or protect these two sites. So that's in progress right now. On May 20th, at our last Culture Task Force meeting, we invited the tribal manager along with Billy Wadsworth, the senior manager for lands, along with her EA. They attended here in the chambers, and we had this discussion. So we're close to having these two sites here marked and recognized. And of course, I like to note that proper Blackfoot ceremonies and prayers were conducted before this GPR work has been conducted up on those hills there, where these two people have been laid to rest, in conjunction with the work that the archaeologist field school had done with Old Sun Community College down in South Camp. So the Culture Task Force, at that meeting on the 20th, we invited two archaeologists to present information on options to identify historical sites with new technology that uses satellite imagery and of course, ground penetrating radar. Liam Wadsworth, a student of the U of A in the Institute of Prairie and Indigenous Archaeology, along with Dr. Ave Drush, is a plains archaeologist. And these two presented work that Liam has been working on using aerial images and training software to identify stone features. So these images that Liam requested, there are some images that Liam has requested through the European Space Agency, which captures extremely close and high density or high definition aerial images of the Earth. And he uses a software to identify these stone features as the ones that are on surface. They're very prominent. You know where there's teepee rings, you know where there's effigies, cairns, and so on. So with his work that he's working on at the U of A through he's a student. This is some new technology that Liam is working on. And he shared a presentation with the Culture Task Force, and he was showing pictures on this technology. Interesting, very interesting. Excuse me. So while Liam has been waiting to hear back from the satellite imagery, on May 28th, Liam updated me that he found some high resolution LiDAR data, and for the majority of the areas along Siksika are identified, or that were this data that he found online. It's public. The majority of these images are along the Bow River. And those are prime areas here on Siksika where there's a lot of natural grasslands where our people could still see evidence of our people being there with ummapi. So that's some of the stuff that we've been working on. And at that meeting too, we invited Dr. Vivian Ayungman, and just to provide information on what her department is doing in the Siksika Knowledge Curriculum Department, what they're working on. And many of their projects relate to the items pertaining to the Chief and Council Strategic Plan on identifying historical sites, capturing stories, preserving our language. So these are some of the things that we found when we had all the entities provide that synopsis of what their areas are doing. And then we'll continue. We want to work with each other. And I always think back to our old people, Dan Awani, Achuchi Spumuchi is help each other, support each other. And then from our standpoint for the Culture Task Force, that's what always resonates through my thinking, is to bring our people together to preserve, not preserve, to save our language and continue to know who we are as Siksika. So her department is in the process of creating a culture resource heritage management program, which is going to teach about work in the museum field along with some archaeological programs. And again, too, this relates to priority 2, line item 2 in the council strategic plan, inventory of culture sites, protection policies. The DEM has reached out to her and her language group to help translate areas on Siksika into Siksika or Nichipuos. So this is another item that we're here to support and build on to identify these places here on Siksika. That meeting was held on May 31st. Myself and Leon attended that meeting along with a DEM and myself as representative on the Public Safety Task Force. I was representing two task forces at this meeting. And the Culture Task Force will continue to collaborate as much possible to enhance this ground penetrating radar work. As the news about the Kamloops Swapnik Indian Residential School started to gain traction on the news outlets over the weekend of May 29th and 30th about this 215 mass grave out there in Kamloops. So that Monday, I took the initiative to reach out to Dr. Keisha Superna. Keisha is a professor at the U of A in the Institute of Prairie and Indigenous Archaeology and Anthropology. Just to introduce myself, and it was introduced through Dr. Ave Drushu, who is the archaeologist that did the presentation. So it was kind of, we had this presentation from these two individuals, which led us to this other connection to Keisha, who is that's her primary work is this ground penetrating radar work and magnetometry and so on. So I reached out to herself and we had discussions here in council outside of the task force on what we're hearing about identifying these sites around these old Indian residential schools. So there's 4 sites here on Siksika, and there could be more, but the 4 sites that we identified as Natusapi or Old Sun Community College, Crowfoot Indian Residential School on the east side, down in South Camp, where the East Agency, and then North Camp was the West Agency. That's where the ration house was, where the early Indian agents, and they had missions, they had churches there. So these are the 4 sites that are known to this group right now, and I'm open to any more suggestions. And everybody has my contact information. It's out there. My cell number is 403-361-1555. My email is kenta@siksikanation.com. You also have the sncc@siksikanation.com. We're here to let's hear you out, to provide any suggestions on, or if people are willing to help when it comes to when it comes to preserving or saving our Blackfoot language, and with these sites here that we're talking about to identify through this ground penetrating work. There are other companies that have been contacted. Is the Great Plains Aerial, and there's another group that helped with the Old Sun and Yellow Horse grave sites. Lunit Consultants. So we'll have these discussions on having this type of work to be done. So that's some of the work that we've been working on, the Culture Task Force, ongoing and very exciting work, and it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this group, and with this group in whole to do our best to just be here for our community. So at this time, I'll turn to my team. I introduced them through their Blackfoot names. We have Councillor Duck Chief, Councillor Crane Bear, Councillor Gooden, Councillor Pantherbone, and Councillor Soloway. So I'll open the floor if anybody has anything that I may have missed.
At this time, I'll pass my chairmanship over to Chief, and I'll comment with my group, the Culture Task Force team. In moving forward with this particular group, Anime Inokamo is sukabi that way, where we really look at Inokamo Siksika internally. Inokamo really identifying these historical sites and moving forward with really taking pride in our communities as we strategize to name our communities and really give it some inspiration, so that as we look to our sovereignty and understanding what our communities mean and the stories behind them. I think this group is very instrumental in doing that, and also looking at the land. There's some great moving parts with the land and how culture is moving forward. There is other areas there where they do our traditional lands. This is a unique task force team where we're looking internally and looking at the lands and the storytelling behind them, capturing them. As you're well aware, Siksika and council as well, where our elders, umakitapiks, utilizing their knowledge, their strengths, their wordings, capturing their stories, and really having that insight as to how the nation is going to really kind of move in that inspiration where we can pass down that to our generational, our grandchildren, our children of today, creating our identity as Siksika Nation people. Nokamo, I just want to plant that seed, and I'll go back to the chair, Kent. Thank you.
Thank you. Koyatos.
Okay, matapiks. It's the one Nico Makuyatos. I just wanted to reiterate what my team had said here. I just want to kind of elaborate, emphasize a meeting with Uxia Gudune Goix. I know my colleague, Councillor Soloway, had talked about our sovereignty. And in the culture, that this culture task force, that's our foundation, is our way of life, and what in our language. So that's really at the forefront of the culture team, is those two aspects, hey? And that's why we met with Kutuna it's, you know, those are our old, I guess you can say here, you know, it's well known, they were our neighbors for millennia, hey? They were also our enemies. But today, of course, we live in a different world, hey? It's a modern world, and there's rules to live by. So that meeting we had back in April the 15th, it was just to renew our ties, our relationships, hey? And kind of strengthen those relationships and moving forward I guess in the modern light, hey? And see what those next steps are. And that was part of this meeting we had on the 15th. They requested to meet with Siksika, you know, and talk about cultural protocols. And what is that really? What does it mean, right? And we had a good chance to kind of elaborate that day on both sides. We came away with, you know, feeling good, you know, and our relationship and what's going to look like going forward. I think going forward, it's going to be a little more, I suppose, we're looking at it from an agreements perspective. So the agreements task force will probably take it over. I still have connections and ties with Kutana, so I'll stay in the loop with that as the middleman, I suppose, quote unquote, but as a connection, I guess, between the both of us. So I just wanted to add that and emphasize that, you know, culture, you know, our way of life. And I know my colleague, a young man, talks about, you know, culture is limited. We're trying, you know, it's too limited. We're trying to break away from it. You know, this is the way we live. So emphasizing that, you know, our traditional territories overlap at the Kootenays, and that was a result of this meeting. So thank you very much for the time to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Carmen, I'll give you the opportunity.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'll just kind of reiterate what Ken was saying. We, in the culture task force, we have language kind of holding the key to our identity, and that's our focus is just kind of getting a snapshot of how that looks. Like what do we have left for fluent speakers on the nation now? And then we can find out ways how we can improve that moving forward. So it's a really important initiative, and I know, you know, we're gathering information by the entities and also within ourselves, kind of getting a survey kind of ready and complete, and then we can roll it out and get a more of a, I guess, a better picture of what's going on right now, so that we can put our, I guess, our planning into really reviving that language aspect, because our identity is embedded in that language. So. Yeah, a lot of work's being done. It's a constant flow of ideas coming through the task forces, and then they kind of interweave with the other ones. So it's a good time. It's looking forward to it, and we do require the involvement of the nation. And, so, you know, by leaving Ken's information, you can reach out to him and provide us with any of that go forth. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have one more item just to update on the Siksika Nation Fair. But before I get into that, I want to update on that the language.
The language.
Sure.
Yes, myself and Councillor, a young man, were on a call with some of the representatives from Ottawa, maybe 5 months back, about making Blackfoot our official language here on the reserve. Before COVID hit, I went out and I was visiting with one of the elders, and they were telling me a story of in the residential school how those nuns would speak French to them. So whenever they hear French, it brings them back. And sadly enough, on the nation, French, because it's one of Canada's official languages, is one of our official languages. And the point I brought up when we were in that meeting was we currently get funded for French immersion but we don't get funded for Blackfoot immersion. And another point, I like, for those who know me, I kind of speak in metaphors, I guess. Also, right around at the same time, there was an all hands on deck for the bull trout. The bull trout is going extinct, and it was all hands on deck because it's an endangered species. And I told Canada, I said, our language is that endangered species right now. And we should have an all hands on deck, just like we're having an all hands on deck with this bull trout. And they were taken aback there for a minute. But we do have a lawyer right now that's working on this, drafting it up now. I don't have a firm date in front of you, but I feel very confident to say that Blackfoot will be one of the official languages at Siksika before this term is complete. Like Councilor Young Man said, we're working on signage. You know, in the coming months, you'll start to see signage up around the nation in Blackfoot. And you know, I'm not a fluent speaker myself. But at the same time, the more you see it, the more you hear it, the more we have these, the more it's, and by it becoming our official language, whenever they send agreements over, they have to be in English and in Blackfoot. So just want to let people know those are the initiatives that we're working on now. We gotta draft. We're working through our lawyer with that process of actually putting that forth and making Blackfoot our official language here on the nation. And that's going to be a big moment. So whenever we're close to that, we will keep you guys apprised and let you guys know, when Blackfoot is our official language. And that opens up a lot more doors. You know, it opens up a lot more doors of our language is not dead. You know, that's what the residential schools tried to do. They tried to take the Indian away from our people. My mom told me stories of when she went to residential school. She was a fluent Blackfoot speaker. I never heard her even speak Blackfoot till I was 16. I didn't even know she could speak Blackfoot. So it's those kind of things that now that once we have our Blackfoot, our official language, you'll see more funding available for immersion programs. You'll see more, again, the signage going up, you know, these kind of things that we're working on. And like I said, I want to let you guys know that's what we're working on right now with one of our attorneys. And once we get the draft document, we'll bring it forth to council. We'll make that proclamation and then we'll put it out to the people. So it's big things in work right now. So thank you, Councilor Young Man.
Thanks, Chief. Just one more quick update. Earlier on in 2020, I was appointed the chair for the Siksika Nation Fair. And COVID, of course, was the issue. So due to the uncertainty of this pandemic that we're enduring, we did not have a fair last year. So basically what we're doing this year is rolling over these events. The folks who were appointed to put together the events, the POW, hand game, rodeo, golf, baseball, cross-country, Indian relay. Of course, we have the security and public works, you know, everything that it takes to organize the Siksika Nation Fair. I've spoken to the individuals, and at this point in time, the individuals agreed not to hold our Siksika Nation Fair in August, and dates are not set, but the months of September and October are being considered. Next week, the team will be meeting together. So right now, they're prepared to have their events, and it's just a matter of tackling or setting the date. And once we do set that, we will let the community know, and it will be well conveyed to our people on when Siksika Nation Fair will take place. Of course, we'll continue to keep in contact with the Siksika Health Services. So we'll listen to their recommendations there when it pertains to COVID-19. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayaman, Kent, and the Culture Task Force team for your update. At this time, I'm going to move right along into our agenda, and I'm going to go to our funding aspect of this agenda, and I'm going to give it to our chief to present the funding.
Okay. Just wanted to give an update for those who don't know. By trade, I'm a CPA, a chartered accountant, and I was the previous CFO. So I'm very familiar with our funding arrangements here at Siksika and how they're lacking. Our federal transfer agreement has been frozen since 1996, and we've only received, I think people are more used to the word COLA, but it's the consumer price index increase of approximately 2% annually. Everybody knows that formula is not working. That formula hasn't worked for many years. So right now we're we're working on these tables, and it's the nation to nation relationship. It's not an FTA. It's not a new FTA. It's not a new, it's not a regional. It's a nation to nation agreement. So again, we're working on setting those tables up. They're not 100% finalized, but we're not talking about the rebase. We're not talking about the FTA. We realize that system's broke. We've been able to maintain. But it's inadequate. If you compare apples to apples from an education standpoint, from a public works standpoint, from all these standpoints, apples to apples to our neighboring friends, we're just not getting the same. So that's where we got some a good team in here, and as we set those nation to nations, get them solidified, that's when we'll bring on our CFO and our tribal manager, and that's when the teams will be more notified, because that's when the technicians will really come into play. So I wanted to let guys know, and anybody that's been dealing with any kind of these nation to nation agreements, especially during COVID, that's what's been making, I'm not blaming COVID by any means, but we got in November 29th, and mid-March, pretty much Canada shut down. But that being said, we didn't let that stop us. We did our virtual meetings. Like I said, we've done as you can hear from these updates, we've continuously been meeting. So, but Ottawa's been on a skeleton crew. So, but we're still pushing forward with this nation to nation agreement. And when that nation to nation agreement gets solidified, that's when we'll bring on our technicians, and you'll see a dramatic difference than what we're talking now, because what we're talking now is the FTA, and that's not working. It hasn't worked for many years, and it's not something that we're going to keep rolling over. We've rolled it over since 1996. We're not rolling it over anymore. We're essentially going to be abandoning that and stepping into a whole new arrangement. So again, as that unfolds, we will let you guys know. Right now, there's still a lot more I's dotting and T's crossed, but I just wanted to bring you guys up to date on the direction of where we're going with those financial arrangements. So I'll leave it at that, Chair. And if anybody has any additional updates or questions, you can email me at the SNCC@siksikanation.com. And also too, if you have any questions in general, like if you want to sit down with me one-on-one, again, my background is finance. We have a lot of agreements in place, these trust agreements, a heritage trust, acreage trust. They're complex. These audits are complex. We're we've got a lot of assets on this nation, and we have to be financially competent to be able to manage these assets. We have a fiduciary duty, everybody that sits in these chairs, and we don't take it lightly. Actually, we started every quarter, we've had our independent financial auditors from BDO start coming in to this group and start teaching Finance 101. The finances about how to read a financial statement, how to read an audit, how to interpret it properly, how to read a budget, how to interpret it properly. Because through our financial administration law, every nation member has access to these budgets, has access to these audits and stuff like that. But if you have access to it and you don't fully understand it, well, then it's no much use. So I have reached out to our team, our third-party audit team. They are willing to do community financial literacy training as well. So if we get enough of a need, if we get a list of people, say 10, 15, 20 people that would like to learn more about the financing and how to read these trust agreements, how to read these audits, how to be more involved, send us again to that email. Let us know, and our executive assistants will get a list. And if we have the demand, we will set up the classes. It will be free of charge. Again, we have a lot of things in the works, and I just want to let everybody know there's a lot of, social media is a great thing, and it's also a bad thing. So we want to make sure that you get the correct information from the correct sources. So I just want to let that be known. I'll sit down myself if I'm not in a meeting one-on-one, if I'm available, and I'll explain it to you. But at the same time, like I said, send an email, SNCC@siksikanation.com if you're a nation member and you want to learn more about the financial literacy, and we will set up a class. We will help you understand these financial statements, and I'll sit down with you myself and go over them and answer any questions you have. But I wanted just to put that out there and also let you know where we're at with this archaic federal transfer agreement's just not working. And this council is not going to roll it over any further. We're going to make that nation-to-nation agreement. It's in works. And when the I's are finished being dotted and the T's are finished being crossed, we'll bring in the full technicians and you'll know more about it at that time. But right now it's still in the works. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chief, for that update with respect to the funding within Siksika Nation. So at this time, I'm going to move my chairmanship over to the Chief. The next item on hand is the land use planning, abbreviation LUP. I first off want to introduce myself. We're going to be discussing Itzaku. And how Kistuno is Siksika, and how we plan moving forward, and how we regulate and really understand how our land base can provide the services and the interest of Siksika Nation. I first off want to introduce myself as I did, and I want to look to my colleague who sits on the land use planning with me, Kendall Pantherbone. Kendall and I have worked with our Siksika Tribal Manager, Richard Sparvier, and our Land and Resource Service Area Manager, Irene Solway. Understanding of moving forward with the land use planning, this has been a very unique undertaking in ways of really understanding how we look at our lands and how we regulate and looking at the policies put forward. There has been a lot of work since 2005. It had a different abbreviation of the Community Development Plan. And in numerous leaderships, numerous change of hands of service area managers, it became of new wordings. And it gave us the opportunity, this leadership, to really look at the importance of how we plan moving forward in regards to Siksika Nation lands. One of the key things that we're doing in this particular item is really identifying the existing document that has been done, taking it and really getting an understanding of how it fits with all the service areas within the administration and how they conduct their policies and how they conduct themselves and how they regulate and move forward with the usage of the land. Very intricate. There's some moving parts in that document where we look to culture and how we look at it internally, how we're developing new projects, whether it be housing, whether it be, tracking the land of important, significant understandings. One of the key things that the land user group, land user plan committee or group is really moving forward is identifying how land management is going to be regulating some of the items and how we function on the nation. Example to that, agriculture, how we're moving with the agriculture aspect of our lands and how we regulate those, nation members as well as non-nation members. Looking at the land base, keeping in mind how we conduct and plan moving forward. Looking at the opportunities of the existing agreements that are in place, whether it's presently or agreements that were in place in the past leaderships, and really identifying that. I think one of the key things that we really looking at also is the environment of Siksika Nation. Whether we're talking what the land gives back to us, the water, what type of resources we have, whether it's gravel, sand, having that opportunity to really look at those points of interest on Siksika Nation and really identifying that. Also moving in a perspective where we're really looking at in the land use planning, the oil and gas. What is the status of the oil and gas of the existing wells that sit on the nation? What is the plan going forward with a lot of those existing oil and gas perspective and agreements that are in place with the nation and leadership? It is a very Gunapi. It's big, and when I say that, Siksika Nation Council is really moving in a direction where we really are stewards of the land. We want to look at the land and identify what Mother Earth is giving back to us and the passion behind that. And I think that is the mindset of this council, as well as the mindset of the land use planning and how we move forward. Really putting those intricate parts together, whether we're utilizing the administration, utilizing the entities, the related bodies, or we're utilizing the task forces that are in place in this term. With that being said, that, Chair, is my update. I want to look to my colleague if there's anything there. Kendall, you're welcome to chime in at this time, and just if there's anything there I might have missed, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, Chief. There are a couple items. The plan itself is going to be a community-based. We're going to be going out, or technicians will be going out to have community consultation and community input into this plan. So it'll be the council's plan to be your plan based on needs and use of the certain areas of the whole Siksika Nation. Right now there are overlapping uses, overlapping requests for use of lands, environmental issues, and so on. I think we all know the challenges out there. The population is growing and we're slowly running out of room on the nation. So there's 3 areas that maybe we have to, we should, well, we need input on 3 areas. That's the expats, sand hills, and wetlands. We're going to preserve those lands to remain natural, or do we develop in certain areas? We don't know. So another key component is the economic development portion, which involves mainly SRDL and possibly entrepreneurs and small businesses. So we need their plans and then possibly go to designate those lands through the land process. Because right now, the Siksika lands are crown lands subject to the Indian Act. We don't have the land code, and we don't know we do have a constitution yet. So we are still subject to the Indian Act. There's one last item that maybe we need to address is the distance to reserve. I think something we'll have to maybe discuss in here and how we're gonna, and what we use the lands for. Identify locations and so on. There's another item that will probably be part of the land use plan because we'll need the community members' input in this plan. So we have a community plan that the chief and councils based on the recommendations coming from membership. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Kendall. And I just want to reiterate what Kendall's saying. We are going to be, reaching out to the community, having that opportunity. And as you're well aware, COVID is moving forward with what they're doing. We're keeping in mind of the health restrictions as well. But we do want to engage with the community. This document is very instrumental with your voices to the land and having that opportunity for you to be a part of this moving forward. And just really emphasizing that it is important and it is important to the Siksika Nation lands and in how we move forward with the land use plan. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll pass the chair back to you.
Thank you. So I just want to reiterate once again, those in live stream, YouTube, once again, your Q&As can go to our email address, sncc@siksikanation.com. We have wind down to the last item at hand on the agenda. This item here is I'm going to give to the Chief Crowfoot O'Ray. It is the 1910 surrender. Chief, you have the floor.
Okay. For those who know about the 1910, from a political standpoint, there are certain agreements in place that we can't divulge as much as we would like to divulge, but I just want to give a quick history, why it's called the 1910. In 1910, there's a canal that bifurcates Siksika Nation. In 1910, 115,000 acres were illegally taken from our lands, and actually there was a law in place that it was illegal. It was illegal for First Nation people to even file a land claim. And Clarence McHugh, was it 1958 or 1960? 1960. The story that I've been told, he sold his own buckskin to buy a plane ticket or train ticket to go to Ottawa to file that claim. And we've been fighting that claim ever since. As you can see in our chambers here, you can't. There's pictures of our chiefs all around, and as we sit in these chairs, all the people in these chairs, these are our ancestors, and they're looking down on us. A lot of these people in these past leaders, they had their hands in dealing with this case and past leadership, and lots of past leaderships have done a lot of hard work on this case. I'd like to introduce the team that's the lead negotiating team. It's Counselor Kent A. Youngman. Oops, me. I'm also working the camera. Oops, okay. Okay, Counselor Susan Soloway. Tracy McHugh and Samuel Crowfoot. So that's our team. And I would like to acknowledge that when we came into these chambers, the end of November, the 1st of December, a lot of work had already been done. So I'd like to thank the previous chief and councils for a lot of the work that they've done. I do feel like this team has done a lot of work in helping to take it to that next level. One of the things we did was we brought on Mandel Pender law firm. They have successfully gone up against the federal courts of Canada and won. We feel like they were a good match and could help us with this case. We also brought in Ernst Clift, which is our lobbyist firm, and they helped assist with setting up several face-to-face meetings, even during this pandemic, several face-to-face meetings with ministers about getting this issue resolved. I actually had a call this morning with Minister Mark Miller on this very case. So like I said, a lot of the work was done before we got here. And I'd like to thank those guys for that. I can't emphasize how much was already done, but this team did a lot of the good negotiations as well. And I do feel like there's several levels, and so there's several levels of it's tough to really explain, but there's several levels of where we're dealing with now. But the next goal, the next level is to get the financial mandate, and the next level is to get the negotiations settled. So that's where we're at right now. That's about as much of an update as we can give based on the requirements.
Thank you, Chief Crowfoot, for the update of the 1910. Missing the team. I'm going to have the opportunity now to look at the agenda, and that was our last key item of the agenda. I want to take a 1-minute break just for council, and we're going to be reviewing the questions that were brought in by way of live stream, and then we'll organize those questions and address Siksika in regards to the questions that have been brought forward to the website. Okay, so we'll take a 1-minute break.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, welcome back, council. Welcome live stream, Siksika Nation. We've come to the end of our agenda. We've come to this part where we're going to be, we've reviewed the question and answers. So at this time, well, I'm going to give it to Chief Crowfoot to go through the questions that have come through membership. And he will be answering them and looking to his colleagues if there's any additions to those questions. Chief, you have the floor.
Okay, and I'm going to be answering the questions primarily that relate to our task force, or this is a task force update, primarily. We will be having more of these, and one of the questions, actually, I'll go straight into that question. Will Chief and Council host any open band meetings this term? We're planning on it. We're planning on hosting meetings. That was in the plans the whole time, but obviously, you know, when we had the pandemic, we're still under the pandemic. So it makes it hard to have these any kind of meetings. So this is our first attempt at having an information session that's out there. As we open up more, we'll have more of these information sessions. Some of these will be entity related. Some of these will be administration related. We'll have, you know, the tribal manager in on some of these and some of the CEOs from our related parties such as health, family services, Old Sun, and Blackfoot Crossing and SRDL. So the questions that I'll be, that I got in right now is primarily going to be related to the ones that are related to the task force that we kind of went over today. One question is, it says, okay, I'm wondering if Chief and Council is going to create a youth Chief and Council this year as the restriction of COVID-19 protocol is going into stage 1. We're actually having a planning session, not this week, but next week. And some of those type items will come up. As of right now, we weren't able to have a youth chief and council. Again, we just now got back to the stage where we could meet as a group. So those kind of, I just also wanted to, if you go back to, if you look at our strategic plan, we did have plans of also having an elders council as well, where we'd have 1 or 2 elders in all of our council meetings. But again, because of the COVID restrictions and the elderly people being the most susceptible to the virus, we had to scratch that idea. But once you know we get the green light, once we're fully out of this pandemic, those kind of ideas we still want to entertain. So just to keep that in mind. There was a question that says, Siksika group of companies contracts for oil field cleanup, have they been given out? Contracts, oil field cleanup. So I'll look to our the chair of the Siksika group of companies to a reply.
Thank you, Chair. The call out for any work related to the oil cleanup, the oil well cleanup, was done the first week in June. So that call out has gone out. Resumes can be forwarded to Shane Breaker. He is the General Manager of Operations over at SRD. Is Shane B at siksikaresource.com, as well his phone number 403-734-5244. What they're looking for are environmental assistance. They are doing a call out for basic laboring. As well, they are providing training for reclamation, so to upgrade in the job top-up dollars. And that is the update I have there. So again, that call out was in June, and please call Shane Breaker, 403-734-5244. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Is there an agenda and materials available for members? the way I'm gonna read this is that in general, our agenda items and materials, minutes and whatnot available to members. I have an answer, but I'll look to our communication specialist. Well, she's giving me the look that she doesn't want to answer, so I'll answer it. You can go on our website. There's a link on the Siksika Nation website. Where's that link under?
You can actually request the meeting minutes from the chief and council assistants. So
Okay.
under chief and council, and you'll find Mariah and Sharon's email address, phone number, and there's also a meeting request form.
Okay.
Sorry, that's not for the minutes, but if you wanted a meeting.
Okay, I'll repeat it just in case it didn't come across clear. Under the chief and council section of the Siksika Nation website, there, the contacts for our executive assistants. If you reach out to them, the minutes of our meetings as well as the agendas will be provided. There's also a form on there if you want to schedule an interview with the chief and council. And then there's another question says, who will lead the design and messaging for the signage at Castle Mountain? It would be best if it was led by nation members rather than Parks Canada or ISK. I'll look over to our culture task force chair, Kent, a young man.
Thank you, Chair. So for the signage up in Castle Mountain, there are two individuals that have been selected to work on them. He's going to be the content. Herman Yellow Old Woman and CP Safe Biak will be interpreting the signage into Siksika. So they are nation members that will be doing the two signages up in the Castle Mountain area.
So that will be Herman Yellow Old Woman and Vivian, a young man, will be assisting the culture team and working with developing those signage up in Castle Mountain. Actually, that meeting takes place this week.
Chair. Yeah, tomorrow they're going to be doing a site visit to get a view of the area, and the final version will be brought into council during planning for this month.
Okay. So that's moving right along pretty quickly here. Another question here is, well, I'll just read it verbatim. We are government to government relations to the province and federal governments. Why is it taking so long to get agreements signed and ratified when this is a multi-level question here? When are we going to get our people trained and back to work with the Siksika group of companies? We need to get some of these issues resolved ASAP. Thank you. I totally agree. That's actually the one reason that we developed these task force. We don't need to be in the administrative level. We need to be up at the political level. And during when I came in, we removed from the administration and kind of developed these task force. So we have had a lot of meetings with a lot of the ministers, government to government relationships. And that's what we're working on, is to streamline that process. And that's kind of what I mentioned with the kind of like the FTA. They've been stringing that along since 1996. And it's not just Siksika, it's been frozen across Canada since 1996. So that's where we've did a lot of work, lobbying on our end to create those relationships, to start that nation to nation conversation. We have the capacity here. We can bypass, we can bypass the that FTA process, but that's what we're working on right now. And then as far as the getting our people trained and back to work, that was the whole kind of the essence of Dean Janvier's conversation is, we need to build an economy on the nation. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with, once we get this 35-foot acre license, once we get some of these agreements set up, we got to start turning a profit. We got to start building that economy. Because right now we have a lot of people employed by the nation and not employed by other companies. We like to see other companies develop on the nation. And so I'll look at our chair for SRDL if she's got any additional comments, but those are some of the things in the works now, is to try to how can we build up that capacity, and how can we build up that economy on the nation.
Thank you, Chair. When we speak to employing our people, we have to remind ourselves of the mandate of SRDL, and that main mandate is to bring in dollars and then create those jobs. And I think it's developing those partnerships specifically with Siksika Employment and Training, because that's the mandate of Siksika Employment and Training, is to ensure that those jobs are there for our people, that training is there for our people. And when all of our, not only SRDL, but all of our departments and entities should be working in partnership with employment and training to ensure that all of those opportunities come to our people first. And make sure that we're trained properly, make sure that those jobs have purpose, make sure that the outcomes are beneficial, not only to the individual, but to everyone, to the whole community. And I think as SRDL transitions out to looking towards rejuvenating itself, I want to call it its rebirth, because that's truly the initiative. That's the drive we've taken this term. It will provide for our people. And in terms of that workforce, I'm hoping people will, as mentioned earlier, join on to those trainings, put your resumes in, and let's all do our part to make sure that the economy base is strengthened. And it has to become a pillar of the community. It's not a side option. It's no longer an option for us. It has to be a pillar of the community. So thank you.
And it wasn't part of this update, but I'll just add a small piece to that as well. In March of this year, this chief and council made the announcement that for the post-secondary education, this goes back to the training and the post-secondary education, getting our people really, my mom was a big pusher of education. And she would tell me that education is our new buffalo. And go get your education. You can really help people. But up until now, the government's been at Siksika, they haven't really supported post-secondary education. ISK interpreted the treaty. There's a portion in the Blackfoot Treaty that says, if your children want to get educated, we will pay their teachers' salaries. It doesn't say K through 12. It doesn't say, not post-secondary. It just says if your children want to get educated, we will pay their teachers' salaries. So we met with the ministers, and we told them we're not gonna start turning away any of our students based on a lack of funding. We're going to start pushing what was signed in 1877 over here at Blackfoot Crossing. And so in March of this past year, this chief and council made the announcement that we will be funding all students for post-secondary education based on the criteria as defined by Old Sun Community College, not as defined by ISK. So, we don't want to hold our students back because, I'd hate to see a student and say, I got into Mount Royal, but Old Sun, they didn't have the funding. We want to remove, we have enough barriers for our people. We're going to start enforcing that treaty right and pushing our people forward. So this council made that initiative. We made that announcement. And actually just yesterday, we sat down with Old Sun president and their staff and went over those renewed policies. And those policies are the policies that we're going to push to ISK. Old Sun Community College was a previous residential school. We were able to take that negative and turn it into a positive. There's been a lot of people in our community that have gotten education upgrade, and as well as funding to go to post-secondary education. So, and they're accredited. They're accredited by a national and international board. So we rely on that institution, that accreditation to develop those policies that would that benefit Siksika, not rely on those policies as passed down by ISK. So for those who aren't familiar, that announcement was made in March that this chief and council would push and support all post-secondary students to enforce that treaty right. So now based on that announcement, hopefully we won't be having these not allowed to go to school because of deferred for funding type purposes. And get more of our young people into these post-secondary institutions, get that education, come back, uplift our people. So that's building that foundation. So again, just wanted to bring that up as well. Do you have any, there's one more question here is, when will you extend the community barbecues to the urban center / Calgary? That also was in our plan. So, our plan, our first one is going to be over by Blackfoot, Crossing Historical Park. We're going to have another one out west. And as the planning goes, we'll have one in our urban area. Obviously, now that we're getting some of these restrictions, more people are getting vaccinated. Like I said, everybody in here has been double vaccinated. So, more of Alberta's opening up. So, but we want to make sure it's safe, but those are in the plans. So, and at the same time, if you're from Calgary, you come down, we're not going to turn you away. You'll still get a burger if you do come down from Calgary. So, so anybody's welcome. Anybody's welcome to come down on the 19th. But we will plan on having one in Calgary as well. How long will it take to secure the 35-foot acre water allotment for Siksika? I'll look to our agreements team.
We're looking anywhere from 3 to 5 years. There's their answer.
Is there more details to that question? Oh, that's good. But I don't get the details of why it will take that long, but Tricia's right, 3 to 5 years.
Okay. There are a lot of opportunities though, once we're already vetting out those opportunities. Tracy?
It's not that we don't have access to it. What the explanation that I was trying to give is that there's room for greater advantages for Siksika's use of that water. And that's the transition we're trying to make. So as it stands now, we do have access to it. So.
Okay. Yeah. So, and that's the thing we're working with our attorneys on. We brought one in that specializes in water rights, and that was the one that was saying, let's look at these different options. Don't just go with, because we met with Alberta about and they laid it out a certain way, and then we met with our attorneys and they said, hold on, you're not bound by that, because the old water license, it almost made it wasn't that attractive. Or so now we're looking at options and say, okay, how can we really benefit? How can we best benefit Siksika as well as collaborative partnerships downstream with an agreement that makes sense. So, all right. Well, those are I'm gonna look to my executive assistant to see if any additional questions have come in. So as of right now, those were the questions that were submitted. we do realize that, this is new still. We want to have more and more of these. And if you didn't have if you couldn't think of a question right now and you think of it in an hour or two, submit it and we'll turn around and give you a reply. But I'll turn it over to the chair at this time.
Thank you, Chair, Chief Crowfoot. Thank you, Council, for your updates, task forces. This brings us to the end of our live stream. Siksika, we want to have the opportunity to thank you for providing the questions, as I'll reiterate what the chief is saying. Do look forward to the opportunity of us creating another live stream as we move forward to the open band meetings, as mentioned. Once again, we thank you, and at this time, we are going to close the live stream. We bid you a good evening, and we bid you to stay safe and stand in solidarity with the First Nations across Canada. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.